You want to play a better version of Donkey Kong? You want to play 2 games for 1, eh? Oh yeah, I got you, brother. I got you. Crazy Kong.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Now, let's get the video started.
Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer Crazy Arcade Stories and Nintendo Ninjas. Guys, Nintendo is famous now for having their lawyers out there for enforcing their IPs, right? Their intellectual properties. But back in the day, right, we saw the genesis of what became the Nintendo Ninjas, and it became just like that because of one Crazy Kong. This is a crazy story, guys. It is a crazy story about a subcontractor who went rogue and started selling their own copies of Donkey Kong under Crazy Kong. But first, let me tell you the first time I ever played a bootleg video game, because that's a very interesting story. So I grew up in the eastern side, south side of Los Angeles, right? And I'm not going to give myself away too much, but you know, LA, right? In various areas of LA in East Los Angeles. And my friends and I, this was around the time, just picture it, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. There was 2 types of people in my neighborhood. You're either a cholo or you were Spicoli's disciple. And my friends and I, we were the new generation, right? We were not cholos. My family didn't let me do that. My uncles were all gangsters, and my dad was completely against that, right? I couldn't be around them. They would kick me out. They would kick me. I tried to hang out with them a few times, and my uncles would beat me up. They would just push me away, right? So, you know, I made other friends, you know, and all these friends were into Vans, Ocean Pacific. It was the 80s, man. It was beautiful, let me tell you. I made some great friendships. And, you know, we hung out at Santa Monica. We used to go boogie boarding because we rode the bus. We couldn't have surfboards, so we had boogie boards. And we partied a lot, you know, of course. And, you know, I was never into the wacky weed, if you will. My friends still are. I have a lot of friends that, you know, even at our age, you know, I'm over here. I literally just unclogged the toilet and I do honeydews around the house. And some of these dudes still partying like it was yesterday, man. Like I can't do it anymore. You know, I'm not up to it anymore. But back in the day, you know, I used to try a few things. Let's just say that. And this particular time, I remember we'd go to this alternate burger joint, right? And it was owned by this Chinese couple, and it was amazing, guys. We had the regular burger joint, you know, where they had the original Donkey Kong, and everybody would go. And then all of a sudden, there was another burger joint down the block that was not as nice. Let's just say it was not as nice. But then it got bought up by this Chinese couple. Man, Chinese people made my neighborhood, they made life so much great because they would sell us alcohol in high school and stuff like that. But that's another story. But they had the bean and cheese burrito combo for under $1, right? It was like a small soda and a bean and cheese burrito. So my friends were really, really into weed. I mean, they really liked it. I didn't, guys. I'm not gonna lie. And it's not that, you know, I'm a saint or anything like that. It's just, it wasn't my preferences. You know, later on in life, I developed other hobbies that didn't have to do with that, right? But, you know, at that time, you know, we were really young, and that's all they did. You know, they wanted to be Spicoli, and we all wore checkered Vans. You had to wear Vans. We had to wear OP, either a shirt, t-shirt, whatever. And we went to this place, and one of my best friends, which is, you know, he's still around today. We're still friends. He was the first one who worked and had a car. So he would go, and he always had product on him, right? He always had a dime bag of whatever. And I remember that I just didn't like weed, and I used to get paranoid. You know, I didn't enjoy the kind of whatever weed they had. I didn't enjoy. I don't know all the strains. I'm not a weed expert. Okay, I don't know any of that crap. So anyway, so we're in the car, and he's like, "We're not gonna leave, right? We're not going to leave until we kill it all, right? We had to smoke the entire thing. So they rolled up this leño right here, you know, and then we just pass it around, you know, here, you know. And I was just blitzed, man. I was just like, my eyes, I was so high. Anyway, I go with my friends in there because we started getting hungry, right? We went straight for the bean and cheese special, bean and cheese burrito, small soda, under $1. You know, the world couldn't have been better, right? So I get in there and I'm like, oh man, I need to relax. You know, they went straight to eating and they were talking and whatever. And I said, I'm going to play Donkey Kong because I saw Donkey Kong. So, you know, I put in a quarter and I started playing, and then I had to do a double take because it wasn't Donkey Kong I was looking at, sort of. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, how high am I? Like, I'm not seeing the colors right. Things are sounding different. So I'm like freaking out. I'm freaking out because I don't know. How high am I? Just like the game says, how high? Man, and I remember like the sounds are different. There was a hiccup, you know, and that's what really stood out. Like, there was a hiccup on this thing. Like, what's going on? And that was the first time that I ever played a bootleg video game. But the story behind it is just absolutely nuts. So what happens is that Nintendo has a subcontractor that were selling so many Donkey Kong units they couldn't keep up. So they had a subcontractor produce motherboards for them, or in this case, arcade boards, I guess you would call them, you know, for them to sell in Japan, right? Unfortunately, what Nintendo did is they gave them a sticker that said licensed by Nintendo in English. So, you know, this subcontracting company, and I'm not using their name, I'll put it up because, you know, somebody else might be called that. I just want to avoid any potential YouTube problems. I already had too many. So this company says, it's in English. Our contract just says Japan, but hey, if you gave me an English sticker. So they put out Crazy Kong, and they were selling them all over the place. You know, and they wouldn't be in the main arcades. They never were. They were always in the mom and pops. They always had special financing deals. And as far as we were asked the owners, because we got pretty close with them, you know, because all they had was knockoffs. You know, I remember they had Rally X, for example. They had his knockoff. They had the Donkey Kong. They had a Pac-Man that was different. You know, I don't even know what they're called, but they always had an alternative. And the way it would work is that, you know, they would put a down payment, and out of the sales every week, they would, you know, pay towards the machine. That's how they built up their little arcade area, if you will. And they had like 3 machines, you know, that they would, you know, swerve around. But anyway, this company started selling thousands of cabinets, of course. You know, people were going crazy. There wasn't enough to go around, and Nintendo sued them. They sued him, you know, and it got to the point where a dude ended up in jail. They actually put his butt in jail. That's where the Nintendo Ninja started, because not only did they create this Crazy Kong, right, where they were making buku bucks, on top of that, they did a crazy Junior Donkey Kong also that also ended up there. Guys, but whenever I see, whenever I think about that day, I remember just tripping out. Like, whoa, you know, and I didn't tell my friends or anything. I didn't want to be like embarrassed, like, oh, this guy's, you know, can't handle it or whatever. But I always remember staring into the machine going like, I'm so high. I'm seeing colors. I'm not hearing stuff right. That was my first impression. You have to remember, guys, I'm like a kid. I'm like 12, right? And I've never been around this stuff. You know, I always was sheltered. It's not, I got into school, into public school out of Catholic school, because my parents had sent me to that point to Catholic and private school, boarding school, that I'm out in the world, and my friends are just trying all this stuff, and and that forever, guys, is going to be my memory of Crazy Kong. And man, I'll never forget it, but I never knew the story behind Crazy Kong and how influential it was into Nintendo becoming, you know, the IP ninjas that are now with all their IP properties. This is the first one where they really went, you know, balls deep, as they say, and actually put the guy in jail, send him to jail over Donkey Kong, over specifically Crazy Kong. All right, humans, that's my story for today. It's crazy. Make sure you like and subscribe. Did you ever partake of special things at the arcade? That reminds me of another story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But anyway, guys, that'll be another video. All right, humans, I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it.